What if the secret to unshakable confidence, relentless focus, and unstoppable resilience wasn't some modern self-help gimmick, but a philosophy that's been tested for over 2,000 years? Picture this: the same mental tools that guided Roman emperors through wars, political chaos, and personal tragedies are now within your reach. This is Stoicism, not as some dusty old textbook theory, but as your ultimate cheat code for cultivating what we call the alpha mindset. And today, we're unlocking it with 25 razor-sharp Stoic quotes that'll rewire how you face adversity, ambition, and everyday battles. Think about the last time stress hijacked your clarity, or self-doubt whispered that you weren't good enough. Maybe it was right before a big presentation, a tough conversation, or when comparing yourself to others online. Here's the truth: the chaos of modern life hasn't changed human nature. We still struggle with fear, distraction, and the weight of expectations. But the Stoics, they turned these challenges into fuel. Marcus Aurelius ruled an empire while journaling reminders to stay grounded. Epictetus, born enslaved, taught that true power comes from mastering your perceptions. These weren't just philosophers, they were psychological warriors, and their words cut through the noise like nothing else. So why does Stoicism resonate more today than ever? Because an alpha mindset isn't about dominance or aggression, it's about unbreakable inner sovereignty. It's deciding that no external event, no criticism, no failure gets to define your equilibrium unless you let it. Over the next 25 quotes, you'll discover how to drain the drama from setbacks, reclaim your attention from trivial distractions, and confront obstacles with a mindset that turns barriers into advantages. This isn't about memorizing quotes, it's about installing a new operating system for your thoughts. Ready to upgrade? Let's dive in. Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher king who steered Rome through plague and war, left us a weapon sharper than any sword. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength. At first glance, it sounds simple, almost obvious, but here's where most people get it wrong. They confuse control with wishing the world were different. The alpha mindset isn't about bending reality to your will. It's about ironclad command over how you interpret reality. Picture two entrepreneurs launching identical startups. Both face the same market crash. One spirals into panic, blaming the economy for his failure. The other audits his expenses, pivots his strategy, and treats the crisis as a stress test for his creativity. Same event, wildly different outcomes. What Marcus is really teaching us is the art of mental sovereignty. When your boss criticizes you, when traffic ruins your morning, when plans collapse, those events don't define your emotional state unless you hand them the keys. Think of your mind like a fortified castle. Outside events are the weather, sometimes storms, sometimes sunshine, but the walls, those are your discipline. The gate, your choice to engage or observe. The Stoics called this the inner citadel, and it's the core of the alpha mindset. No, you can't stop the rain, but you can refuse to let it drown your focus. Here's the modern trap. We've been conditioned to seek control in all the wrong places. We obsess over likes, algorithms, other people's opinions, external validation that's inherently unstable. Meanwhile, the real leverage lies in mastering your attention, your self-talk, your ability to detach from chaos. Take combat sports as an example. A fighter can't control the opponent's punches, but he can drill his footwork, his breathing, his composure under pressure. That's the Stoic edge. Marcus didn't write those words from a cushy palace. He scribbled them in his field tent during military campaigns, with death and uncertainty pressing in. If he could find strength there, where does that leave your excuses? This quote isn't just philosophy, it's a tactical blueprint. Every morning, ask yourself, what will I do if my plans are disrupted? If someone insults me, if fear tries to hijack my focus, pre-decide your responses. That's how you build reflexes stronger than your impulses. Because here's the secret no one tells you. The alpha mindset isn't about never feeling doubt or frustration. It's about knowing those emotions are visitors, not landlords. You let them knock, but you don't offer them a seat at the table. Now let's translate Marcus Aurelius' wisdom into daily practice, because philosophy without action is just decoration. Start with this simple exercise. Each morning, write down 3 potential disruptions that could derail your day. Maybe it's a missed deadline, a rude comment, or bad weather ruining your plans. Beside each one, jot how you'll respond not emotionally but strategically. This isn't about predicting every crisis. It's about conditioning your mind to default to solutions, not surrender. The Stoics called this premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of evils. By rehearsing adversity in advance, you strip it of its power to shock you in the moment. Take Theodore Roosevelt, a man who embodied this principle long before Stoicism became trendy. At 42, he endured the worst day of his life. His mother and wife died within hours of each other. That same night, he wrote one sentence in his journal: "The light has gone out of my life." Yet weeks later, he was cattle ranching in the Dakota Badlands, channeling his grief into physical labor and reflection. He didn't deny his pain, he used it, transforming himself into the resilient leader history remembers. Here's another tactic: the view from above meditation. When stress hits, pause and visualize your situation as if you're seeing it from space. That argument with your coworker, from this perspective, it's a tiny blip in your decade-long career. The rejected project, one of hundreds you'll create. This exercise isn't about minimizing your struggles, it's about contextualizing them. Modern neuroscience backs this up. Creating mental distance weakens the amygdala's panic response, letting your prefrontal cortex, the rational CEO of your brain, take the wheel. Ever notice how Navy SEAL train in freezing water or sleep deprivation? They're not masochists, they're practicing voluntary discomfort, another Stoic tool. Try it yourself. Take cold showers, skip the snooze button, or fast for 12 hours. These small acts of self-denial rebuild your tolerance for discomfort, so when real adversity strikes, you're already conditioned to handle it. James Stockdale, the fighter pilot imprisoned and tortured for 7 years in Vietnam, survived by replaying Epictetus' teachings in his head. "This is my test. What will I do with it?" He later credited Stoicism for keeping him sane. Journaling is your secret weapon here. Don't just document events, interrogate them. At day's end, ask, where did I hand over control to externals today? How could I have reinterpreted that obstacle? Marcus' Meditations was never meant for publication. It was his personal debriefing system. You're not aiming for poetic prose, you're building mental armor, one honest reflection at a time. The alpha mindset isn't built in grand gestures. It's forged in these quiet moments, choosing discipline over convenience, reflection over reaction. Every time you rewrite your internal script from "this is ruining my day" to "this is my training ground," you're not just surviving life's tests, you're redesigning them. Epictetus, a former slave who became one of history's most influential Stoic teachers, drops a truth bomb that shatters victim mentality forever. It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. At its core, this isn't just about resilience, it's about alchemy. The alpha mindset doesn't see obstacles, it sees raw material waiting to be transformed. Consider 2 athletes tearing their ACLs mid-season. One falls into despair, convinced his career is over. The other uses the recovery time to study game film, strengthen his upper body, and mentor rookies. Same injury, divergent trajectories. This quote reveals the hidden mechanism behind mental toughness, the gap between stimulus and response. There's a sliver of space, often milliseconds, where your interpretation takes shape. Master that gap and you master your life. Navy SEAL train this reflex through simulated ambushes. CEOs cultivate it by reframing market crashes as chances to innovate. The Stoics called this proherses, your faculty of choice. External events, those are just data. your judgment about them, that's the code running your entire operating system. Modern psychology confirms this ancient wisdom. Cognitive behavioral therapy, the gold standard for treating anxiety and depression, is essentially applied Stoicism. When a client says, "My boss hates me," the therapist asks, "What's the evidence? Could there be another explanation?" That's Epictetus in 21st century language. Your boss's tone isn't the problem, your story about what it means is. The alpha mindset thrives on editing those stories in real time. Take James Dyson, the inventor who built 5,000 failed vacuum prototypes before landing his breakthrough. Most people would have quit at failure number 50, drowning in shame. Dyson, he kept a logbook analyzing each malfunction, treating them like puzzle pieces rather than defeats. Failure is just information, he'd say, a direct echo of Epictetus. Every breakdown contained the blueprint for the next iteration. Here's how to weaponize this perspective today. When faced with a setback, ask 3 questions. What did this reveal about my blind spots? How does this free up resources or attention for something better? What would I advise my best friend if this happened to them? This triage shifts your brain from helplessness to agency. Psychologists call it cognitive reappraisal. The Stoics called it amor fati, the love of fate. But let's get brutally practical. Next time you're stuck in traffic, don't white-knuckle the steering wheel. Use those minutes to listen to an audiobook chapter or brainstorm solutions for a work problem. When a project gets cancelled, audit what you learned, skills gained, contacts made. That wouldn't have happened otherwise. Even heartbreak carries merciless gifts. It shows you where your boundaries were weak, what qualities truly matter to you in a partner. Epictetus didn't just preach this philosophy, he lived it. As a slave with a crippled leg, he could have wallowed in bitterness. Instead, he declared, "Lameness is an impediment to the leg, but not to the will." That's the alpha mindset in its purest form, an unbreakable will that treats every condition, even change, as raw material for greatness. Your reactions aren't just responses. They're the chisel sculpting your legacy. Consider Jocko Willink, the retired Navy SEAL commander whose entire leadership philosophy hinges on one word: good. When a mission gets cancelled, good, more time to train. When he gets injured, good, a chance to strengthen other muscles. This isn't toxic positivity, it's tactical reprogramming of the mind. Willink's approach is pure stoicism in camouflage gear. He doesn't just endure setbacks, he hunts for the hidden leverage in them, treating adversity like a sparring partner that forces him to adapt. Elite athletes embody this same principle. Take Kobe Bryant after tearing his Achilles tendon, a career killer for most players. Instead of despairing, he dissected game footage obsessively during recovery, studying opponents' weaknesses he'd previously overlooked. By the time he returned, his basketball IQ had leveled up. Or look at Serena Williams, who missed nearly a year of competition due to life-threatening complications after childbirth. She didn't just claw her way back to tennis, she used the hiatus to launch a venture capital firm, proving that forced pauses can birth unexpected pivots. Tech entrepreneurs live by this creed too. When Airbnb's founders were bleeding cash during the 2008 financial crisis, they didn't fold. They sold politic-themed cereal boxes to stay afloat, turning desperation into a viral marketing stunt that kept the lights on. Same with Slack, born from the ashes of a failed video game startup. The team realized their internal communication tool was more valuable than the game itself. That's the alpha mindset in action, scanning the wreckage not for losses but for salvageable parts. Even in everyday life, this philosophy reshapes outcomes. A barista whose cafe closes during a recession starts roasting beans at home, accidentally building a boutique coffee brand. A writer whose manuscript gets rejected 50 times uses the feedback to create a Substack that gains a cult following. These aren't exceptions, they're examples of what happens when you apply Epictetus' framework deliberately. The common thread: none of these people enjoyed their setbacks, but they refused to let pain go to waste. Pain with no purpose is just suffering. Pain with purpose, that's tuition payment for a lesson you'll use forever. The next time life hands you a grenade, remember, the alpha mindset doesn't see the pin pulled. It sees the shrapnel as raw material to build something sharper. Seneca, the Stoic philosopher who advised Emperor Nero, cuts through our modern obsession with busyness with a single razor-sharp truth. Life is long if you know how to use it. At first glance, it sounds like empty reassurance until you realize Seneca wrote this while dying slowly from poisoning, fully aware his remaining hours were numbered. That's the paradox. The man with the least time left understood its value better than anyone. Most people confuse being busy with being productive, cramming their days with notifications, half-finished projects, and trivial obligations. The alpha mindset, it treats time like finite ammunition. Every shot must count. Take Silicon Valley's most ruthless CEOs. They don't just manage time, they wage war against anything that doesn't align with their core objectives. When Elon Musk splits his day into 5-minute blocks or Bill Gates takes weeks alone in a cabin, they're practicing Seneca's principle. Life expands when you refuse to let society's noise dictate your attention. The average person loses 3 hours daily to aimless scrolling. That's 45 full days per year flushed down the digital drain. Now imagine reclaiming even half of that. You wouldn't just have extra time, you'd have a strategic advantage. Here's where most productivity hacks fail. They focus on doing more rather than doing what matters. Seneca called this poverty of the soul, when people feverishly chase promotions or possessions without asking why. Contrast that with Warren Buffett's 2-list strategy. Write down 25 career goals, circle the top 5, and avoid the rest at all costs. Why? Because the enemy of exceptional isn't failure, it's distraction. The alpha mindset isn't about grinding harder, it's about pruning mercilessly so your energy flows where it creates seismic results. But let's expose the real thief of time: postponed living. I'll travel after retirement. I'll start the business when the market improves. Seneca saw this 2,000 years ago. You act like mortals in all that you fear and like immortals in all that you desire. The antidote: preemptive mortality. Every Sunday, ask yourself, if this were my last week, what would I stop tolerating? What conversations would I finally have? This isn't morbid, it's clarifying. When the late Steve Jobs told Stanford graduates, "Death is life's greatest invention," he was channeling Stoicism. Remembering you'll die isn't depressing, it's the ultimate filter for triviality. The military operates on this principle. Navy SEAL train for missions with backward planning. Start from the objective deadline, then work reverse to identify critical milestones. Apply this to your goals. Want to write a book in 12 months? That means drafting by month 6, outlining by month 3, researching now. Seneca's quote isn't about literal lifespan, it's about density. A decade of intentional living yields more legacy than 50 years of autopilot. Look at how history's most impactful figures treated time. Leonardo da Vinci carried notebooks everywhere, jotting ideas between painting The Last Supper. Marie Curie slept just 4 hours nightly to maximize lab time. They weren't sacrificing balance, they were investing in what ignited them. The alpha mindset rejects the lie of someday. It's the difference between "I'll get in shape when work calms down" and "I train because my body is the vessel for every ambition." Practical steps. Start with a 24-hour audit. For one day, log every activity in 30-minute blocks. You'll spot leaks instantly. That quick social media check that morphed into 40 minutes, the meeting that should have been an email. Next, implement Stoic scheduling. Divide your day into creation, deep work, connection, relationships, and cultivation, health/learning. Guard these like a vault. When someone demands your time, ask Seneca's question: does this align with my life's purpose, or is it a distraction dressed as an opportunity? Modern life wants you addicted to urgency, the ping, the deadline, the manufactured crisis. The alpha mindset rises above the frenzy by asking one question: on my deathbed, will this have mattered? That's Seneca's true gift, not more hours, but more meaning per hour. Time isn't slipping away, you're handing it away, take it back. Seneca's insight about stretching time through intentionality isn't just theory, it's a call to arms for how you structure your day. The alpha mindset doesn't find time, it creates it by design. Start with the Pomodoro technique, a battle-tested method that turns focus into a game. Set a timer for 25 minutes and attack a single task with undivided attention, no emails, no texts, no mental wandering. When the bell rings, take a strict 5-minute break to hydrate or stretch. Repeat 4 times, then reward yourself with a longer pause. Why does this work? Neuroscience shows our brains cycle through peak focus in roughly 90-minute ultradian rhythms. Pomodoro slices these into manageable sprints, preventing burnout while exploiting natural concentration peaks. Picture an author drafting a novel. 4 Pomodoro blocks per day equals 100 focused hours in a month, enough to complete a first draft while most people are still waiting for inspiration. Now layer in the Eisenhower matrix, a Stoic-approved filter for separating the essential from the trivial. Draw a simple 2x2 grid. Label the quadrants: urgent and important crises, deadlines, not urgent but important planning, skill building, urgent but not important, most emails, interruptions, and neither. The magic happens in quadrant 2, the space where long-term growth lives. Most people drown in quadrant 3, mistaking urgency for significance, the alpha mindset. It ruthlessly delegates or deletes quadrant 3 and 4 tasks, guarding quadrant 2 time like a vault. Elon Musk's time-boxing strategy takes this further. He schedules meetings in 5-minute increments and colors his calendar to audit energy expenditure. Red for creativity, green for maintenance, visual accountability that exposes time leaks. But here's where Stoics upgrade these tools: scheduled reflection. Every Friday, block 15 minutes to review your week. Where did you default to busy work instead of high-leverage activities, which distractions masqueraded as priorities? Seneca called this the examen, a practice Jesuit priests still use to course correct. Modernize it by tracking your ROI, return on intention. If you invested 10 hours in a project, did it advance your core goals or just feel productive? For deep work, steal a tactic from Cal Newport: grand gesture scheduling. J.K. Rowling famously checked into a hotel to finish Harry Potter, removing domestic distractions. You don't need a 5-star suite, just a library corner or even a parked car with your phone off. The ritual signals to your brain this time is sacred. Navy SEAL do this pre-mission with battleproofing routines, laying out gear the night before to eliminate morning friction. Translate this to your goals. Prep your gym clothes, workspace, or meal ingredients in advance. You're not saving minutes, you're preserving willpower for the battles that matter. Tech founders use themed days to compartmentalize focus. Monday for operations, Tuesday for product development, Wednesday for team building. This minimizes context switching, that silent killer of productivity that drains more cognitive energy than most realize. A study at the University of California, Irvine, found it takes 23 minutes to fully refocus after an interruption. Now multiply that by your average workday's notifications. The Stoic solution: controlled accessibility. Set 3 30-minute windows daily for emails and messages. Outside those mute alerts, your colleagues will adapt and you'll reclaim hours of flow state. Finally, embrace strategic laziness. Yes, you heard that right. Aristotle argued leisure is the basis of culture, and modern research proves deliberate downtime boosts creativity. Bill Gates takes think weeks reading in a secluded cabin. Einstein famously noodled on his violin when stuck on physics problems. Schedule 90-minute blocks labeled non-negotiable nothing, walks without podcasts, showers without problem solving. These aren't luxuries, they're the incubation periods where breakthrough insights emerge. The alpha mindset knows sometimes the most productive thing you can do is stare at a wall and let your subconscious connect the dots. Seneca's quote wasn't about adding more hours to your life, it was about injecting more life into your hours. Whether you're a student, entrepreneur, or artist, these techniques transform time from a tyrant into an ally. The difference between ordinary and extraordinary isn't effort, it's allocation. Master that and you'll find something startling. You don't need more time, you just need fewer leaks. Zeno, the founder of Stoicism, delivers a truth so potent it echoes through the centuries. Man conquers the world by conquering himself. At first glance, it sounds like a motivational poster, but dig deeper and you'll uncover the blueprint for true power. The alpha mindset isn't about dominating others, it's about reigning supreme over your own impulses, desires, and distractions. Think of the modern world as a colossal casino, every app, ad, and algorithm designed to hijack your attention for quick dopamine hits. Zeno's wisdom cuts through the noise. The ultimate victory isn't accumulating more, but needing less. Consider the science behind delayed gratification, the famous Stanford marshmallow experiment. Children who resisted eating one treat now for two later grew into adults with higher SAT scores, better health, and greater career success. But here's the twist. The alpha mindset reframes this not as deprivation, but as strategic advantage. When you master your cravings for junk food, for procrastination, for shallow validation, you're not just building willpower. You're freeing up mental bandwidth to focus on what truly moves the needle. Elon Musk didn't revolutionize 3 industries by binge-watching Netflix. Beethoven composed his greatest works while deaf, their superpower redirecting primal urges into creative fuel. History's most formidable figures lived this principle. Theodore Roosevelt, sickly as a child, willed himself into a powerhouse through brutal self-discipline, boxing at dawn, studying under candlelight, embracing cold showers long before biohacking was trendy. Black Diamond Kobe Bryant famously shot until midnight after games, then returned at 4 a.m. to outwork his competitors. These weren't masochists, they were architects of their own greatness. Zeno's quote reveals the paradox: the less you're enslaved by cravings, the more you can achieve. Modern neuroscience confirms this. Every time you resist checking your phone during deep work, you strengthen the prefrontal cortex, the brain's CEO. Meanwhile, indulging every whim weakens it, leaving you reactive rather than strategic. The Stoics called this ascesis, voluntary discomfort to fortify the mind. Soldiers do it through boot camp. Entrepreneurs do it by waking at 5 a.m. to build their ventures before the world distracts them. But let's expose the myth. Self-mastery isn't about perfection. It's about awareness. The alcoholic who counts days sober is still fighting. The alpha mindset reframes slip-ups as data points, not failures. When Warren Buffett devours burgers and Coke, it's not hypocrisy, it's selective indulgence. He marshals discipline where it matters, investing, reading 500 pages daily, saying no to 99% of opportunities, practical steps. Start small, skip dessert once a week, leave your phone outside the bedroom, take the stairs instead of the elevator. These are micro battles that train your no muscle. Next, audit your environment. If social media drains you, delete apps for 72 hours and observe the mental clarity that follows. Like a sculptor chipping away marble to reveal the statue within, each no to distraction reveals more of your potential. Zeno's brilliance lies in the reversal. The path to outer achievement begins inward. Conquer the itch for shortcuts and you'll outlast everyone chasing quick wins. Master the pause between impulse and action, and you'll navigate life like a chess grandmaster, thinking 10 moves ahead while others react to the last one. The world belongs to those who have tamed the chaos within. The Stanford marshmallow test didn't just predict success, it exposed the biological wiring behind self-control. When researchers tracked those children decades later, they discovered something startling. The kids who waited had fundamentally different brain activity. Their prefrontal cortices, the command center for decision-making, muscled the primal urge for instant gratification. This isn't just willpower, it's neuroplasticity in action. Every time you resist hitting snooze or scrolling social media, you're not just making a choice, you're physically rewiring your brain's circuitry. The Stoics didn't have fMRI machines, but their practices mirrored this science perfectly. Marcus Aurelius journaling at dawn, Epictetus embracing poverty — these were ancient forms of cognitive training, strengthening neural pathways like a mental gym. Modern habit research confirms this. The habit loop: cue, routine, reward — shows how behaviors cement into autopilot. But here's where Stoicism flips the script. Instead of waiting for motivation, you engineer discipline through micro-choices. Navy SEAL don't rely on willpower to wake up at 4 a.m. They ritualize it until it becomes identity. I'm someone who rises before the sun. That's the alpha mindset hack, transforming struggle into self-concept. Studies at University College London found it takes 66 days on average to solidify a habit, but the key variable isn't time, it's belief. When volunteers viewed exercise as part of who they were, e.g., I'm a runner, they stuck with it 3 times longer than those seeing it as a task. Dopamine, the brain's motivation molecule, plays tricks on us. Slot machines and Instagram likes exploit its surge and crash cycle, keeping us hooked on randomness. Stoic practices like voluntary discomfort, cold showers, fasting work differently. They stabilize dopamine, teaching the brain to derive satisfaction from effort itself. Harvard research shows people who embrace challenging tasks report higher long-term fulfillment than those chasing easy highs. It's why Warren Buffett spends 80% of his day reading. He's rewired his reward system to find pleasure in deep work rather than distraction. The basal ganglia, the brain's habit headquarters, operates on efficiency. It turns repeated actions into automatic routines to conserve energy. This explains why morning routines are battlefields for the alpha mindset when the first hour and the day follows. Olympic athletes use implementation intentions. When X happens, I'll do Y. For Stoics, this was premeditatio malorum, pre-deciding responses to adversity. Neuroscience proves this works. Prefrontal activation spikes when we plan countermeasures in advance, making discipline less about willpower and more about preparation. But the real breakthrough: temptation bundling. Stanford behavior expert B.J. Fogg found linking desired habits to existing routines skyrocket success rates. Love coffee but hate journaling. Only allow yourself that first sip while writing morning reflections. The Stoic equivalent: pairing daily walks with philosophical study, as Seneca did. This isn't just productivity, it's synaptic alchemy, fusing pleasure with progress until they're indistinguishable. The amygdala, our panic button, hijacks rational thought under stress. That's why Epictetus drilled: it's not events but judgments about them that disturb us. Modern therapy techniques like cognitive restructuring mirror this, teaching patients to interrogate catastrophic thoughts. Brain scans reveal that reframing anxiety as excitement, both are arousal states, flips amygdala activation into prefrontal engagement. Navy pilots call this turning fear into focus, the exact mental pivot Stoics achieved through breath control and perspective shifting. Ultradian rhythms' 90-minute focus cycles explain why Seneca championed work in concentrated bursts. Your brain isn't designed for 8-hour marathons. Peak performers like Charles Darwin worked precisely 4.5 hours daily, dividing time into 90-minute blocks with strict rest intervals. The alpha mindset leverages biology rather than fighting it, sprinting when neurotransmitters are fresh, recovering when they deplete. Neuroscience unveils the mechanics behind Zeno's maxim: self-conquest is literally a reshaping of neural networks. Every cold shower taken, every distraction ignored, every impulse deferred is another stroke sculpting the brain of someone who doesn't just chase success but embodies it. Musonius Rufus, the Stoic teacher who trained Epictetus, sliced through our modern obsession with work-life balance with a blade of brutal clarity. To relax the mind is to lose it. At first, this sounds like toxic hustle culture until you realize Rufus was exiled, tortured, and forced to labor in a quarry, yet still taught philosophy by firelight each night. His message wasn't about grinding yourself into dust, it was about the danger of mental complacency. The alpha mindset draws a critical distinction between exhaustion and engagement. One drains you, the other fuels you. Picture two CEOs building companies. One binges Netflix after 6 p.m., convinced he's earned downtime. The other spends evenings studying chess strategy or learning Mandarin not out of obligation, but because curiosity energizes him. Both work hard, but the second CEO's mind stays sharp because he treats mental muscles like physical ones. Use them or lose them. This is Rufus' core insight. True relaxation isn't zoning out, it's switching gears to activities that stretch different parts of your intellect. Leonardo da Vinci didn't paint The Last Supper by day and scroll through Renaissance-era social media by night. He dissected corpses to understand anatomy, designed flying machines, and filled notebooks with riddles cross-training his genius. Modern neuroscience backs Rufus. When researchers at UC San Francisco studied retirees, they found those who engaged in complex hobbies learning instruments, new languages maintained cognitive function decades longer than peers who opted for passive entertainment. The brain's default mode network, the screensaver state activated during idle time, is where rumination and anxiety fester. Contrast that with flow states where challenge and skill intersect. Whether it's coding, cooking, or competitive fencing, activities that demand full presence don't deplete you, they recharge you. But here's where hustle culture gets it catastrophically wrong, glorifying sleeplessness as a virtue. The alpha mindset isn't about never resting, it's about strategic rest. Olympic athletes don't skip recovery days, they optimize them. Sleep scientist Matthew Walker's research proves elite performers prioritize 7 to 9 hours of sleep because they know groggy brains make flawed decisions. The Stoic twist: even rest must be active. Marcus Aurelius journaled at dawn to clarify his thoughts. Churchill painted landscapes between wartime strategy sessions. These weren't escapes from effort, they were forms of effort that restored focus. Look at how Warren Buffett spends 80% of his workday reading. Or how Bill Gates takes annual think weeks alone in a cabin with stacks of books. They're not working harder, they're working smarter, understanding that the mind thrives on deliberate challenges, not mindless busyness. When Rufus warned against relaxing the mind, he targeted passivity, not peace. There's a reason Navy SEAL train in chess. Forced rest periods between missions become opportunities to sharpen tactical thinking, not just binge TV. Practical application: audit your downtime. Replace autopilot scrolling with activities that engage different mental gears. A software developer might study Japanese calligraphy to engage spatial intelligence. A lawyer could unwind with woodworking, training patience and precision. The key is varied challenges. Rufus students debated ethics 1 hour, practiced poverty simulations the next. Modern equivalents: alternate weightlifting with learning podcasts or chess with cooking new recipes. Burnout doesn't come from effort, it comes from monotony. The alpha mindset thrives on diverse demands: physical, intellectual, creative, each replenishing energy for the others. Like a forest fire that clears dead wood for new growth, purposeful strain regenerates capacity. Rufus knew the mind isn't a candle to be conserved, but a fire to be fed. The moment you stop adding logs is the moment it starts dying. Navy SEAL don't just endure hell week, they master the science of strategic recovery. While the world sees their infamous 50-hour no-sleep evolutions, what happens next is where the real lesson lies: mandatory rest cycles, hydration protocols, and even controlled power naps between torture sessions. This isn't just survival, it's the Stoic balance of tension and release, pushing limits without breaking them. Elite performers understand what most miss. Grit isn't about ignoring fatigue, it's about respecting it enough to recharge before you crash. Take David Goggins, the ultramarathon running SEAL who famously trained on broken legs. Even he follows a brutal yet precise recovery ritual. Ice baths to reduce inflammation, compression sleeves for circulation, and a strict 8-hour sleep window no matter how chaotic his schedule. The alpha mindset treats recovery like a covert mission. Every stretch, every meal, every minute of downtime is tactical. Contrast this with the average person who grinds until burnout, then binges Netflix for 3 days, mistaking lethargy for rest. The ancient Stoics practiced this duality too. Marcus Aurelius rose before dawn to journal and exercise, but his letters reveal he also cherished quiet walks in nature to return to himself. Seneca wrote his most profound essays during exile, yet insisted on daily laughter as mental hygiene, their secret cyclic intensity. The Romans didn't march legions non-stop. They built fortified camps every 15 miles to resupply. Modern research confirms this rhythm. Top chess players train in 90-minute bursts with 20-minute breaks, while elite musicians practice just 4 hours daily divided into focused sessions. Here's how to operationalize this today. First, micro-recoveries. Every 55 minutes of focused work, take 5 to hydrate, stretch, or stare at a distant object, saving your eyes from screen strain. These aren't interruptions, they're performance multipliers. Second, fuel like a strategist. Chow down on high-protein, low-glycemic meals during ops to avoid energy crashes. Swap afternoon candy bars for almonds or hard-boiled eggs, and watch your focus outlast your coworkers. But the real game changer, sleep stacking. Stanford studies show a 10-minute power nap boosts cognitive function more than caffeine. Combine this with nostril breathing, inhaling through one nostril at a time. A Navy SEAL hacked to calm the nervous system, and you've hacked your biology. Even Rockefeller and Churchill napped daily, not as indulgence, but as ammunition for high-stakes decisions. The Stoic edge lies in this paradox. Discipline isn't just about enduring hardship, but engineering systems that make hardship endurable. A soldier who neglects foot care collapses during the march. A CEO who skips sleep makes reckless deals. The alpha mindset knows recovery isn't the opposite of grit, it's grit's silent partner. Train like a SEAL, rest like a Stoic, and watch your resilience become your unfair advantage. Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher king who faced barbarian invasions and political betrayals, delivers one of Stoicism's most battle-tested truths: the obstacle is the way. 4 words that dismantle every excuse you've ever made. This isn't just resilience, it's alchemy. The alpha mindset doesn't just endure obstacles, it consumes them as raw material for growth. Modern science calls this antifragility, the phenomenon where systems, from muscles to startups, don't merely survive stress but thrive because of it. Think of a bone healing stronger after a fracture, or a forest regenerating denser after a wildfire. That's the Stoic edge. Every setback contains the blueprint for your next evolution. Take James Stockdale, the Navy pilot shot down over Vietnam. For 7 years in a POW camp, he endured torture, isolation, and starvation. Yet he later credited his survival to Epictetus' teachings specifically, viewing his captivity not as a tragedy, but as my laboratory for mastering Stoicism. Where others saw despair, Stockdale saw drills. His captors broke his body, but his mind grew untouchable, a living example of the obstacle becoming the way. Fast forward to Silicon Valley, where founders now run failure postmortems, dissecting bankrupt startups for lessons the way surgeons study cadavers. The pattern is universal. Those who dominate their fields don't avoid obstacles, they reverse engineer them. Here's the biological secret: your nervous system evolved to learn from discomfort. When you lift weights, micro tears in muscle fibers trigger repairs that build denser tissue. Neurons work the same way challenges create myelin, the insulation that makes neural pathways faster. The alpha mindset exploits this by reframing obstacles as stress tests for potential. Kobe Bryant didn't just rehab his injuries, he used forced downtime to study opponents' weaknesses through game footage, returning with sharper tactical IQ. Starbucks' Howard Schultz was rejected by banks 242 times before funding his first coffee shop. Each no honed his pitch until it was irresistible. But let's expose the trap most fall into: binary thinking. They believe success means a straight path, no delays, no rejections, no pain. Reality, every breakthrough is a detour. When Apple fired Steve Jobs, it seemed like career death. Yet those 12 years in exile birthed Pixar and NXT, the very experiences that reshaped him into the leader who saved Apple upon his return. Marcus Aurelius didn't write Meditations on a beach vacation. He scrawled it in military camps surrounded by death. The obstacle war became the way to crystallize his philosophy. Practical steps start with obstacle inversion. Next time you face a setback, ask, how could this actually help me? Lost a client, now you have bandwidth to court bigger fish. Got injured, time to strengthen neglected muscles or skills. Even betrayal teaches discernment. Then, implement preemptive obstacles, artificial challenges that train antifragility. Marathoners train in hills to flatten race day. CEOs like Ray Dalio mandate mistake meetings where teams dissect failures without blame. The goal isn't to avoid storms, but to become the ship that adjusts its sails faster. The deepest lesson here: adversity doesn't build character, it reveals it. A sword isn't forged by avoiding the furnace, but by enduring it. When you stop seeing obstacles as roadblocks and start treating them as the curriculum, something shifts. You stop asking, why me, and start asking, what's next? That's the alpha mindset's signature move, turning every wall into a ladder. Elon Musk's journey with SpaceX wasn't just a series of successes, it was a masterclass in Stoic resilience. Picture this: March 2006, the first Falcon 1 rocket lifts off, only to explode less than a minute later. Fast forward to 2008, after 3 consecutive failures, with critics calling SpaceX a billionaire's vanity project, Musk faced a choice: pivot or perish. Instead of folding, he doubled down, analyzing every shred of debris from those crashes like a forensic scientist. The result: Falcon 1's 4th launch succeeded, making SpaceX the first privately funded company to reach orbit. But here's the twist: those early explosions weren't setbacks, they were data goldmines. Each failure exposed flaws in materials, software, and team coordination that textbooks couldn't teach. By embracing the obstacles, Musk turned SpaceX's graveyard of wrecked rockets into stepping stones for the reusable Falcon 9, a breakthrough that slashed launch costs by 90%. Now contrast that with Boeing's Starliner program. Plagued by delays and software glitches, Boeing's approach was caution first, avoiding public failures at all costs. The result: SpaceX now dominates the commercial space race, while Starliner remains grounded in development hell. The difference isn't just engineering, it's mindset. Musk's team didn't just tolerate failure, they ritualized it, conducting postmortems where engineers were celebrated for exposing weaknesses. This is Stoicism in action, treating every obstacle as feedback, not fate. Or take Sarah Blakely, the founder of Spanx. Before revolutionizing shapewear, she faced rejection from every hosiery mill in the South. Instead of quitting, she studied each no to refine her pitch. When manufacturers scoffed at her lack of fashion experience, she flipped the script. That means I don't know what's impossible. Her breakthrough came from a literal obstacle: the frustration of panty lines showing under white pants. Where others saw a wardrobe nuisance, Blakely saw a billion-dollar opportunity. Even in sports, the principle holds. After breaking his leg during the 2016 Olympics, snowboarder Mark McMorris didn't just recover, he used the 18-month rehab to overhaul his technique. Analyzing slow-motion footage of his crashes, he pinpointed flaws in his aerial rotations. When he returned, he didn't just match his old skills. He surpassed them, winning bronze in 2018 and silver in 2022. The broken bone, it forced him to train smarter, not just harder. These aren't outliers, they're blueprints. When Starbucks lost 61% of its value during the 2008 recession, Howard Schultz didn't retreat. He retrained every barista in espresso mastery, transforming stores into third places between work and home. The financial crisis became the catalyst for Starbucks' highest quality era. The pattern is universal. Obstacles precede evolution. A restaurant owner forced to pivot during COVID starts meal kits, discovering a revenue stream 10 times more profitable than dine-in. A writer whose manuscript gets rejected 50 times self-publishes, building an email list that lands a 7-figure deal. The alpha mindset doesn't ask, why is this happening? It demands, what is this teaching? Because history doesn't reward those who avoid storms. It crowns those who learn to sail in them. Epictetus, the former slave-turned-Stoic master, delivers a command so precise it could double as a mental scalpel. First say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do. At surface level, it sounds like generic self-help until you realize this is the ultimate antidote to modern distraction. The alpha mindset doesn't just chase goals, it becomes them through irreversible declaration. Picture two aspiring entrepreneurs. One vaguely wants to be successful, scrolling through motivational posts between Netflix episodes. The other writes in his journal, "I am a founder who ships products that solve real problems," then spends his mornings coding instead of consuming. Same 24 hours, wildly different trajectories. This quote exposes the flaw in how most people approach ambition. They treat identity as something to earn after years of effort, when the Stoics knew the secret: you must claim it first. Muhammad Ali didn't wait to win a title before declaring himself the greatest. He announced it, then trained like someone who refused to be contradicted by reality. Modern psychology calls this identity-based habits the phenomenon where behaviors stick when tied to self-perception. A study in the Journal of Consumer Research found people who said, "I don't eat junk food," resisted temptation better than those who said, "I can't eat junk food." The difference: one frames the choice as identity, the other as deprivation. But here's where Epictetus takes it further. Declaration alone is empty without corresponding action. His wording is deliberate: say what you'd be, then do what's required. This bridges the gap between aspiration and discipline. Consider Arnold Schwarzenegger arriving in America with broken English and a dream of Hollywood stardom. He didn't just visualize fame, he enrolled in acting classes the same week he landed, grinding through accent reduction drills until his voice matched his vision. The alpha mindset thrives on this duality: bold self-definition paired with obsessive execution. Neuroscience reveals why this works. When you vocalize an identity, "I am a writer," your brain's reticular activating system starts filtering the world for evidence to support it. Suddenly, you notice plot ideas in conversations, observe narrative structures in everyday events. Your mind becomes a magnet for relevant opportunities. Then, when you take aligned actions, writing 500 words daily, dopamine reinforces the loop until the identity feels inevitable, the modern trap. We declare goals but tolerate distractions that undermine them. Want to be a CEO but check emails during deep work. An athlete who skips recovery. Epictetus' razor slices through this hypocrisy. His contemporary, Seneca, put it bluntly: you must match your speech to your conduct. Twitter founder Jack Dorsey lived this during Square's early days. He told his team, "We are builders of financial infrastructure," then personally coded through weekends to prove it. When employees saw the boss shipping features at 2 a.m., they internalized the standard. Practical steps start with identity scripting. Each morning, complete this sentence in a notebook: Today I am identity, so I will action. For example, today I am a disciplined creator, so I will write before checking messages. This isn't affirmation, it's a behavioral contract. Next, conduct a distraction audit. List everything that derails your focus, then ask, would the person I'm becoming tolerate this? If the answer's no, delete the app, block the website, or set boundaries. Cal Newport calls this digital decluttering, removing distractions like a surgeon excising tumors. Elite performers operationalize this. Olympic swimmer Michael Phelps didn't just want gold medals. He trained as someone who expected them, visualizing every lap until his body moved automatically. Writer Haruki Murakami wakes at 4 a.m. to write, not because he's inspired, but because I am a novelist demands it. Epictetus' genius lies in the sequence. Clarity of being precedes effectiveness of doing. Before you can dominate your field, you must first introduce yourself to the mirror as the person who already does. The Stoics never faced Instagram distractions, but their principles for mastering attention translate perfectly to today's digital battlegrounds. Start with app blockers, tools like Freedom or Cold Turkey that function as modern-day gatekeepers for your focus. These aren't just productivity hacks, they're identity statements. When you block TikTok during work hours, you're not just avoiding cat videos, you're reinforcing that you're someone who guards your time like a vault. Cal Newport's research at Georgetown found that knowledge workers lose 2 hours daily to context switching between apps. That's 500 hours yearly, enough to write a book or launch a side hustle. App blockers turn the tables, making distraction the exception rather than the default. But here's where most stop short. They install the tools but skip the rituals. That's like owning dumbbells but never lifting them. Pair your blockers with deep work ceremonies. Set a physical timer before intensive tasks, not just as a clock but as a sacred boundary. Author Neil Gaiman famously writes in 2-hour chunks with a cheap plastic hourglass. When the sand runs out, he stops. The ritual trains your brain to associate the timer's start with hyperfocus. For extra Stoic flair, add pre-commitment devices. Tell a colleague you'll email them the finished report by noon, or book a post-workout coffee with a friend. Now, avoiding distractions isn't just about willpower, it's about integrity. The military understands this psychology. Navy SEAL don't just try to wake up at 4 a.m. They schedule a live fire drill at dawn. No snooze button option. Translate this to your work. Schedule important tasks during biological prime time, those 90-minute windows when your energy peaks. For early risers, that might mean coding from 6 to 7:30 a.m. Before the world wakes up. Night owls guard 8 to 9:30 p.m. like a dragon hoarding gold. Use tools like Rescue Time to audit your digital habits. It's like a financial tracker, but for attention. Seeing your weekly time spent on LinkedIn in bold red is the wake-up call no motivational quote can match. But the ultimate hack: create friction. The Stoics didn't have addictive algorithms, but they knew temptation thrives on ease. Make distractions harder to access. Delete social apps from your phone. Force yourself to log in via desktop if you must check them. Writer Tim Ferriss keeps his phone in airplane mode until noon, treating mornings like a focus dojo. If you're truly bold, try a dumb phone for a week. You'll rediscover the eerie clarity of a mind not constantly pinged by notifications. These aren't sacrifices, they're exchanges. You're trading shallow scrolling for the deep satisfaction of a manuscript finished, a business launched, a skill mastered. The alpha mindset doesn't reject technology, it domesticates it. Your phone becomes a tool, not a tyrant. And just like the Stoics who practiced poverty to appreciate abundance, occasional digital fasts make your online time richer, more intentional. When you finally open that app, it's because you chose to, not because your thumb autopiloted to the icon. That's the real victory, not just controlling your screen, but reclaiming your mind. Seneca, the Stoic philosopher who navigated the treacherous court of Nero, delivers a truth that slices through modern anxiety like a scalpel. We suffer more often in imagination than in reality. At first glance, it sounds like a comforting platitude until you witness its power in action. Picture an entrepreneur lying awake at 3 a.m., mentally replaying every possible way her pitch could crash and burn. The PowerPoint glitches, investors scoff, her voice cracks, except none of it has happened and statistically none of it will. Yet her body reacts as if it's real. Cortisol floods her system, her heart races, her muscles tense. This is Stoicism's greatest revelation about fear. Your brain can't distinguish between a genuine threat and a vividly imagined one. The alpha mindset doesn't eliminate fear, it outs it as a fraud. Neuroscience confirms Seneca's ancient wisdom. MRI scans show the amygdala, your brain's alarm system, lights up equally whether you're actually facing a tiger or just thinking about public speaking. Modern therapists call this anticipatory anxiety, and it's why exposure therapy works. Navy SEAL don't overcome panic by avoiding stress. They systematically expose themselves to controlled doses of it until their nervous system learns this isn't fatal. The same principle applies to launching a startup, asking someone out, or defending your boundaries. The fear of rejection often outweighs rejection itself. Take Sarah Blakely again before her first retail meeting for Spanx. She vomited from nerves in the parking lot, but here's the twist: the buyers loved her product. Her suffering peaked before the event, not during. This pattern repeats endlessly. Studies show 90% of our feared outcomes never materialize, and the remaining 10% are rarely as catastrophic as imagined. The alpha mindset leverages this by demanding receipts. What's the actual probability of this worst-case scenario? If it happens, what's my contingency plan? Most disasters dissolve under scrutiny like mist in sunlight. Analysis paralysis, that crippling overthinking, is fear in disguise. A founder obsesses over perfecting his app, delaying launch for years while competitors move faster. Why? Because shipping makes judgment real. In his mind, an unfinished product can't fail. It's Schrödinger's startup, simultaneously brilliant and flawed until released. The Stoic antidote: premeditatio malorum meets MVP, minimum viable product. Visualize the worst-case launch, bad reviews, low sales, then realize you'd survive, iterate, and improve. Twitter started as a podcast platform called Audio. When Apple's iTunes dominated that space, Audio's team pivoted to a microblogging side project. Had they clung to their original perfect plan, we'd never have tweets. Practical steps first: fear setting. An exercise Tim Ferriss popularized based on Stoic principles. Divide a page into 3 columns. What's the worst that could happen? How could I prevent it? And if it happens, how would I rebuild? This flips fear from a vague monster under the bed to a concrete checklist. Second, the 5-second rule. When hesitation strikes, count down from 5 and act. NASA astronauts use this to override panic during emergencies. It disrupts the brain's doom loop before it gains momentum. But the deepest lesson lies in Seneca's phrasing, more often in imagination. He doesn't say always, because real suffering exists. The alpha mindset isn't about denying adversity. It's about refusing to pay emotional interest on debts you may never owe. A fighter can't control whether he'll get hit, but he can stop getting hit in the shower the night before. Every minute spent catastrophizing is a minute stolen from preparation. Warren Buffett's first shareholder letter in 1965 contained just 700 words, no glossy graphics, no hyperbole. When asked why he didn't fret over making it perfect, he shrugged. "I'd rather be approximately right than precisely wrong." That's the Stoic edge. Action cures fear faster than any reassurance. The moment you step into the ring, whether it's sending that email, making that call, or shipping that product, you reclaim mental real estate that fear once occupied. Seneca's Rome is gone, but human nature hasn't changed. Your imagination will always be a worse tyrant than reality. The question is, will you kneel to it or wield it as a map to navigate, not avoid, the terrain ahead? The human nervous system isn't wired for comfort, it's wired for adaptation. That's the science behind exposure therapy, and it's why the Stoics didn't just philosophize about fear, they practiced confronting it. Cold showers aren't just about willpower, they're miniature boot camps for your amygdala. When you step under icy water, your brain screams danger, but within seconds, something remarkable happens. Your body realizes it won't die. This is neuroplasticity in real time. Repeated exposure teaches your panic button that discomfort isn't lethal. Navy SEAL use this principle in drown-proofing drills, where trainees' hands and feet are bound while they learn to resurface and breathe. The goal isn't torture, it's to prove at a cellular level that even the most visceral fear can be mastered. Public speaking operates on the same mechanism. The first time you present to a crowd, your palms sweat and your voice quivers. But by the 10th presentation, especially if you've analyzed recordings of your performances, your nervous system starts recognizing this isn't a threat, it's a skill. Comedians know this intimately. Jerry Seinfeld's first stand-up gig bombed so badly he hid in the bathroom afterward, but he returned the next night and the next until the terror became mere butterflies. Modern research confirms this. A study at the University of Colorado found that after just 5 public speaking attempts, participants' cortisol levels dropped by 50%. The fear didn't vanish, it lost its fangs, but here's where most people stumble. They mistake avoidance for recovery. Skipping parties to dodge social anxiety only strengthens it, like refusing to walk on a sprained ankle until the muscle atrophies. The Stoic workaround, gradual exposure. Start small, strike up a conversation with a barista if networking events paralyze you. If heights trigger panic, stand on a balcony before attempting a mountain hike. Behavioral psychologists call this systematic desensitization, and it's how therapists treat phobias. A person terrified of elevators might first imagine riding one, then stand near an open elevator door, then take a single-floor trip with a trusted friend. Each step rewires the brain's threat assessment. Elite athletes apply this daily. Basketball players shoot hundreds of free throws until the clutch moment feels routine. Surgeons practice sutures on synthetic skin until their hands move with unconscious precision. The alpha mindset doesn't wait for courage to show up, it builds courage through repetition. Jocko Willink's mantra, good, is exposure therapy in 2 syllables, reframing every setback as a rep in the gym of resilience. Practical steps design a fear hierarchy. List scenarios that trigger anxiety, ranking them from mild to extreme. If financial insecurity keeps you up at night, start by reviewing your bank statement daily. Progress to negotiating a small bill, then invest a trivial sum to practice tolerating market fluctuations. The key is progressive overload, the same principle bodybuilders use. You wouldn't bench press 300 pounds on day 1, you'd start with the empty bar. Fear works the same way. The Stoics took this further with voluntary discomfort, sleeping on the floor, wearing thin cloaks in winter. This wasn't masochism, it was immunization. By occasionally depriving themselves of comforts, they proved viscerally that hardship couldn't break them. Modern equivalents: delete food delivery apps for a week and cook every meal. Take a digital sabbatical where you check email just once daily. These aren't punishments, they're strength training for your no muscle. The deeper lesson: fear shrinks when you stop running and start examining. What feels like a monster under the bed becomes manageable in daylight. Exposure therapy doesn't promise a life without fear. It offers something better, the certainty that you can act despite it. After all, courage isn't the absence of terror. It's the realization that terror doesn't get to dictate your choices. Cato the Younger, the Stoic statesman whose defiance of Julius Caesar became legend, left us a masterclass in disciplined communication with one piercing sentence: I begin to speak only when I'm certain what I'll say isn't better left unsaid. At first glance, it sounds like simple restraint until you witness the sheer power of strategic silence in action. The alpha mindset doesn't just value words, it treats them like precious currency, spending only when the return on investment is undeniable. Contrast this with modern culture's endless noise, hot takes, reactive tweets, meetings that could have been emails. Cotto's approach isn't about shyness, it's about psychological dominance. History's most effective leaders understood this. George Washington's contemporaries noted his unnerving ability to stay quiet in debates, speaking only to deliver decisive opinions that carried weight precisely because they were rare. Warren Buffett still keeps a placard on his desk reading "No" to avoid impulsive commitments. Even nature teaches this lesson. Lions don't roar unnecessarily. They conserve energy for moments that demand it. The common thread, selective vocalization. Every word spoken frivolously weakens the impact of words that truly matter. But Cotto's genius goes deeper. His quote isn't just about minimizing speech, it's about maximizing authenticity. In an era of performative outrage and virtue signaling, the alpha mindset cuts through with brutal honesty. Think of Marcus Aurelius refusing to flatter the Roman Senate, or Angela Merkel's famed reluctance to grandstand during Europe's debt crisis. Their influence grew not despite their restraint, but because of it. Research from the Harvard Business Review confirms this. Leaders who speak less frequently in meetings are perceived as 21% more competent when they do contribute. Silence isn't emptiness, it's the canvas that makes your words pop. Consider the courtroom tactics of Clarence Darrow, America's greatest trial lawyer. During cross-examinations, he'd often pause for 10 full seconds before responding, a tactic so unnerving that witnesses frequently blurted out damning confessions just to fill the void. Modern negotiators use this same principle. FBI hostage specialists train in tactical silence, knowing most people reveal critical information when pressured by quiet. The lesson: speech is power, but disciplined silence is leverage. Practical application: start with the three-gate test before speaking. Is it true? Is it necessary? Is it kind? This ancient Stoic filter eliminates gossip, knee-jerk reactions, and emotional dumping. Next, embrace the 5-second rule in conversations. Pause after someone finishes speaking instead of rushing to respond. You'll be shocked how often others reveal valuable insights just to avoid the discomfort of quiet. And for high-stakes scenarios, script your key points in advance like a CEO preparing for earnings calls, not to sound robotic, but to ensure every syllable carries purpose. The ultimate test of Cotto's wisdom plays out daily on social media. Scroll through any platform, and you'll find careers ruined by impulsive tweets, while those who post sparingly, like Barack Obama or Elon Musk at his most strategic, command outsized attention when they do engage. This isn't coincidence, it's cognitive science. The scarcity principle shows humans value rare resources, including words. But here's where most misinterpret Stoic silence: it's not passive. When Cotto denounced corruption in Rome, his speeches were volcanic precisely because he'd built credibility through restraint. The alpha mindset knows when to deploy silence as a shield and when to shatter it with truth-telling that shifts paradigms. Like a sniper who conserves bullets but never misses, your words should land with precision, not frequency. In a world drowning in noise, the rarest superpower isn't eloquence, it's the discipline to let your absence speak until your presence becomes undeniable. Refining speech isn't just about polishing words, it's about wielding them like a surgeon's scalpel, precise and purposeful. The Stoics didn't just preach restraint, they engineered frameworks to ensure every syllable served a higher goal. Enter think a 5-letter filter that transforms communication from reactive noise to strategic force. True weeds out exaggeration and gossip. Helpful ensures your words add value, not just volume. Inspiring lifts others rather than dragging them into pettiness. Necessary kills frivolous chatter that drains time and focus. Kind, often misunderstood, isn't about niceness, but about respecting the humanity in every exchange. This isn't just etiquette, it's psychological jiu-jitsu. Consider how Abraham Lincoln crafted the Gettysburg Address. Just 272 words, yet it reshaped a nation's conscience. He didn't ramble or dilute his message, WITH Chinese letter pleasantries. Every phrase passed the think test, historically accurate, true, galvanizing a war-torn people, helpful and inspiring, addressing the existential crisis of union necessary, and honoring fallen soldiers without vilifying the South. Kind. Contrast that with modern boardrooms where meetings sprawl because no one applies this filter. The alpha mindset doesn't just speak, it curates. Now apply this to tough conversations. Imagine critiquing an employee's performance. The untrained mind might vent frustration. You've been slacking lately, but think reframes it. Your last 3 reports missed key data, true. Let's troubleshoot so you can shine, helpful. I know you're capable of exceptional work, inspiring. This matters because clients rely on accuracy, necessary. I'm here to support your growth. Kind. Same intent, radically different impact. Social media amplifies the stakes. A troll's impulsive tweet can ignite a firestorm, while a leader like Satya Nadella transformed Microsoft's culture by replacing know-it-alls with learn-it-alls, a single phrase that passed think and shifted corporate DNA. The framework also protects you before posting. Ask, is this true or just my venting? Is it helpful or just adding to the noise? Most viral outrage fails these tests. But here's the twist. Think isn't about suppressing passion. Martin Luther King Jr.'s "I have a dream" speech burned with righteous fury, yet every word was necessary for the civil rights movement. Kind in its refusal to dehumanize opponents, and inspiring enough to echo through generations. The alpha mindset knows when to soften edges and when to strike with precision. Practical steps: install a think checkpoint in your daily rituals. Before hitting send on an email, scan it for all 5 criteria. In heated discussions, practice tactical pauses, literally counting to 3 while mentally running your response through the filter. For public speaking, script key points using think as an outline, ensuring each section lands with purpose. The ultimate mastery: silence as a think tool. When a colleague rants, sometimes the most powerful reply is attentive quiet followed by, "What outcome do you truly want?" A question that forces clarity through the noise. Words are finite. Choose them like a general, selecting which hills to fight for. Because in the end, the Stoics knew, the fewer words you waste, the louder the important ones resonate. Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher emperor who ruled Rome through plague and war, delivers a wake-up call that shakes the soul. Think of yourself as dead. You have lived your life, now take what's left and live it properly. This isn't morbid, it's liberation. The alpha mindset doesn't fear mortality. It wields it as a whetstone to sharpen priorities. Picture 2 versions of yourself, the one who drifts through days on autopilot and the one who rises each morning knowing time is borrowed. Which version makes the phone call they've been avoiding? Which one finally launches the side hustle? Death isn't just an endpoint, it's the ultimate accountability partner. Steve Jobs crystallized this Stoic principle when he told Stanford graduates, "Remembering that I'll be dead soon is the most important tool I've ever encountered to help me make the big choices." Facing pancreatic cancer, he doubled down on creating the iPhone instead of playing it safe. Contrast that with the average person postponing dreams until some mythical, perfect time. The Stoics called this memento mori, not as a dark obsession but as a focusing mechanism. Roman generals kept skulls on their desks during victory parades. Tibetan monks meditate in charnel grounds. Why? To remember, this breath isn't promised. Modern psychology validates this ancient practice. Researchers at the University of Kentucky found that when people visualize their own funerals, they experience a legacy shift, suddenly valuing meaningful relationships over trivial grievances. Another study showed that hospice nurses consistently report the same top 5 deathbed regrets: working too much, neglecting friendships, suppressing feelings, missing joy in the moment, and failing to live authentically. The alpha mindset internalizes these truths now, not on death's doorstep, but here's where most misinterpret Marcus' quote: "It's not about bucket lists or reckless abandon." Proper living means alignment. A billionaire chasing his 10th yacht isn't living properly. He's addicted to accumulation. A teacher pouring into students despite modest means. That's legacy in motion. When novelist Haruki Murakami wakes at 4 a.m. to write, it's not just discipline, it's defiance against the entropy of time. He's not counting days, he's making days count. Practical steps start with the tombstone test. Design your ideal epitaph in 6 words. He built what others called impossible, or she loved fiercely and left wisdom. Now audit your last week. What percentage of your time actually served that vision? Next, implement deathbed math. At age 80, you'll have about 4,000 weeks total. Draw a grid with 4,000 squares. X off the ones you've lived. The remaining blanks, that's your currency. Spend it on what echoes. Entrepreneurs like Elon Musk operationalize this. When SpaceX's early rockets kept exploding, Musk didn't retreat, he accelerated. "If things aren't failing, you're not innovating fast enough," he told his team. The Stoic twist: he wasn't just racing competitors, he was racing time itself. The same urgency pulses through Serena Williams' comeback after life-threatening childbirth complications, through Maya Angelou writing "Still I Rise" at 49. They didn't wait for permission to be great, they treated procrastination as the real death. Even micro choices shift under this lens. That petty argument with a neighbor. Wasted square, an hour scrolling instead of sketching your app prototype, lost territory. The alpha mindset knows you don't need more motivation, you need sharper awareness that the sand is always falling. Marcus didn't write Meditations for fame. He wrote it as if each page might be his last. That's the edge no one can teach but everyone can claim. Live like you've already died, and what remains becomes pure, undiluted purpose. The tombstone test cuts through life's noise like a scalpel, but to truly weaponize mortality, you need something sharper: the deathbed audit. Picture yourself decades from now, frail and fading, reviewing your life's reel. What moments swell your chest with pride? Which choices make you wince with regret? This isn't hypothetical, it's neurobiology. Studies at Stanford show end-of-life patients activate distinct brain regions when processing meaningful vs. wasted experiences. The alpha mindset leverages this future hindsight by asking one brutal question daily: will this decision earn a spot in my final montage? Consider 2 lawyers billing 60-hour weeks. One chases partnership to buy a 3rd vacation home. The other takes pay cuts to defend innocent convicts. Both might appear successful, but their deathbed verdicts would diverge violently. Legacy isn't about achievements, it's about alignment. When Nobel laureate Daniel Kahneman analyzed peak end theory, he found people judge entire experiences by their final moments and emotional pinnacles. Your deathbed isn't tallying promotions, it's replaying first kisses, childhood laughter, and the time you helped a stranger without posting it. Practical steps. Start with reverse eulogy drafting. Write your ideal eulogy as if delivered by someone who truly knew you, not the sanitized LinkedIn version. Then, contrast it with your current trajectory. Founders like Shopify's Toby Luke do this quarterly, adjusting priorities until both documents match. Next, implement legacy triggers, physical reminders that snap you out of autopilot. A chef I know keeps a single knife from his late mentor on his workstation. Every time he grips the handle, he's reminded, cook like this is your last service. But here's where Stoics upgrade the exercise: preemptive loss visualization. Instead of waiting for old age, simulate losing capabilities now. Spend a day blindfolded to appreciate sight, or fast to savor food's sanctity. When composer Beethoven went deaf, he hacked his piano's legs to the floor, composing through jaw vibrations. His late works, including the Ode to Joy, weren't created despite his disability, but through its brutal gift of redefined focus. The military operationalizes this with after-action legacy reviews. SEAL teams don't just debrief missions, they ask, if this were your final operation, would you be proud of how you led? Translate this to civvy life. After major decisions, journal as your 80-year-old self. That job offer requiring relocation, your future self might cherish the adventure or lament missing your kids' ballet recitals. History's icons practiced this relentlessly. Alfred Nobel founded the Peace Prize after reading his own premature obituary titled "The Merchant of Death" for inventing dynamite. John D. Rockefeller, once the world's richest man, spent his later years giving away 90% of his wealth after a near-fatal illness clarified what mattered. Even Marcus Aurelius' meditations were essentially letters to his future dying self, course corrections in real time. The ultimate hack: create legacy leverage. Every action has ripple effects, but some create tidal waves. Tutoring one child might seem small until that child becomes the teacher who inspires thousands. Startups call this keystone habits, small behaviors that cascade into disproportionate impact. For you, it might mean mastering morning solitude to sharpen daily decisions, or finally writing that book whose ideas outlive you. Your deathbed self isn't judging your bank balance or follower count. It's measuring three things: the love you gave, the growth you forged, and the peace you made with life's chaos. The alpha mindset doesn't defer this clarity. It mines it early, letting the specter of mortality sculpt today's choices into tomorrow's legacy. After all, the finest epitaphs aren't carved in stone, they're etched in the lives you changed. Epictetus, the former slave who became history's most influential Stoic teacher, drops a truth bomb that dismantles modern anxiety at its roots. Happiness and freedom begin with one principle: some things are within your control and some are not. At first glance, it sounds simple, but this is the psychological equivalent of splitting the atom. The alpha mindset doesn't just acknowledge this dichotomy, it weaponizes it. Picture two investors during a market crash. One obsesses over Fed policies and inflation rates, external factors he can't control. The other audits his own portfolio allocation, emotional triggers, and contingency plans, variables within his power. Same storm, radically different outcomes. This quote reveals the fatal flaw in how most people approach agency. They exhaust themselves trying to bend reality to their will, demanding their boss be fair, their commute be smooth, their body never age. The Stoics called this the folly of the dog tied to a cart. The animal strains against its leash, choking itself as the cart rolls on, never realizing peace comes from running with the movement. Modern psychology confirms this. Studies show chronic stress correlates more tightly with perceived lack of control than with actual hardship. Prisoners of war like James Stockdale survived torture by focusing solely on their responses, while guards monitoring them often crumbled under stress despite holding all the power. But here's where Epictetus flips the script. Recognizing what's beyond your control isn't surrender, it's strategic triangulation. A sailor can't command the wind, but she can adjust her sails. Muhammad Ali couldn't control Sonny Liston's punches, but he could master the rope-a-dope strategy that leveraged Liston's aggression against him. The alpha mindset thrives on this pivot, redirecting energy from futile resistance to creative adaptation. Consider the tech entrepreneur whose app gets rejected by Apple's App Store. The weak mindset rages at faceless reviewers. The alpha audits, can I refine the UI? Resubmit under different categories. Build a web version as a workaround. This is proactive detachment, caring deeply about outcomes while emotionally detaching from uncontrollable variables. Neuroscientists call this locus of control. Individuals who focus on their sphere of influence show higher resilience and problem-solving acuity. Practical application. Start with the control audit. Draw two circles, inner controllables like effort, preparation, attitude, and outer uncontrollables like weather, others' opinions, market shifts. When stress hits, ask, which circle is this in? If it's outer, note it and redirect energy inward. Next, practice selective ownership. Just as Warren Buffett ignores stock ticker noise to focus on intrinsic business value, train yourself to obsess over your inputs, not outcomes. A job candidate can rehearse interview answers control, but can't force a hiring manager's preference, no control. The military embodies this through OODA loops: observe, orient, decide, act. Pilots don't waste mental bandwidth on enemy tactics, they focus on their own next move. SEAL teams drill this with control the controllables mantras during hellish training. When your mind starts spiraling about external chaos, deploy Epictetus' question: is this within my power? If not, your only task is to adjust your stance. The ultimate freedom lies in this realization. You don't control the world, but you always control your interpretation of it. A delayed flight is either a scheduling nightmare or bonus time to read. A critic's jab is either an insult or free feedback. The alpha mindset doesn't just accept this truth, it exploits it, turning every uncontrollable into a puzzle for creative response. Because mastery isn't about commanding the waves, it's about learning to surf. Imagine holding two concentric circles in your hands, one small and solid, the other larger and translucent. This is the Stoic exercise Epictetus called the dichotomy of control, and it's the ultimate stress detox for modern life. The inner circle represents what's fully within your power, your judgments, values, and actions. The outer ring, everything else: traffic jams, stock market crashes, other people's opinions. The alpha mindset thrives by pouring energy into the inner circle while observing the outer with detached curiosity. Take a high-pressure sales call. The weak mindset fixates on uncontrollables, whether the client likes them, if competitors undercut their price. The Stoic sales pro focuses relentlessly on their preparation, tone, and ability to listen deeply. They can't guarantee a yes, but they can ensure their pitch is so polished that rejection, if it comes, isn't due to their lack of effort. That's the pivot from anxiety to agency. Modern psychologists call this locus of control, but the Stoics mapped it centuries earlier. Researchers at the University of Michigan found that people who focus on their sphere of influence report 23% lower stress levels, even in high-stakes jobs like emergency medicine. Why? Because the brain treats uncontrollable stressors like unsolvable puzzles, exhausting mental bandwidth with no payoff. Navy SEAL train this during hostage rescues. They can't control the captor's actions, so they drill breaching tactics until they're automatic. But here's where Seneca added nuance. Between the two circles lies a critical middle ring, the sphere of influence. These are factors you can't control directly, but may sway through persuasion or relationships. A junior employee can't single-handedly change company policy, but they can build alliances with senior colleagues who might champion their ideas. Climate activists don't control legislation, but they mobilize voters to pressure those who do. The alpha mindset distinguishes between direct control and strategic influence, avoiding the paralysis of all-or-nothing thinking. Practical steps start with the stress triage. Next time overwhelm hits, grab paper and draw 3 rings. In the innermost, list responses within your command. I can research my presentation more, or I can apologize for my mistake. The middle ring holds leverage points. I can ask my mentor to introduce me to the hiring manager. The outermost, write down the rest, then mentally release them like balloons. CEO coaches use this with clients drowning in quarterly targets. The act of physically externalizing uncontrollables, weather delays, supply chain hiccups, frees cognitive space for solvable problems. The military operationalizes this through commander's intent. When special forces teams are briefed, they're given the mission objective but empowered to adapt tactics based on real-time obstacles. The end goal, inner circle, is non-negotiable. The path, outer circle, is flexible. Apply this to your goals. Want a promotion? Your inner circle is skill building and visibility. The outer circle includes whether your boss gets transferred. Obsess over the first, adapt to the second. Winston Churchill mastered this during WW2. He couldn't control Hitler's armies, but he could inspire British resilience through speeches, fortify alliances with Roosevelt, and micromanage RAF fighter production. His journals show meticulous tracking of what I can move today versus what I must endure. That's the Stoic edge, transforming fatalism into focused action. Yet here's the trap: mistaking concern for control. Parents anguish over adult children's life choices. Workers fixate on gossip they can't silence. The Stoic remedy: the reserve clause, adding fate permitting to every plan, not as defeatism but as liberation. You'll book the vacation if the flight isn't cancelled. Launch the product if suppliers deliver. This mental bracket keeps you striving without attaching happiness to uncontrollables. The test of true mastery, watching chaos unfold without your pulse spiking. When Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events," he wasn't denying reality's harshness. He was highlighting the mind's sovereign territory, the only realm where victory is guaranteed if you choose it. Traffic jams don't cause road rage, your permission to react does. So tomorrow, when your inbox explodes or plans crumble, pause. Ask, which circle is this in? Then act or release accordingly, because the alpha mindset's real superpower isn't avoiding storms, it's dancing in the rain while building an ark. Seneca, the Stoic philosopher who navigated Emperor Nero's volatile court, slices through the illusion of righteous anger with a chemical truth. Anger is an acid that can do more harm to the vessel in which it is stored than to anything on which it is poured. Picture a beaker of sulfuric acid left unattended. It eats through its own container long before it reaches its target. That's the paradox of rage. It corrodes your clarity, health, and influence long before it impacts whoever provoked you. The alpha mindset doesn't suppress emotions, it surgically dissects them, asking, "Is this fire warming me or burning my house down?" History's most effective leaders understood this dichotomy. When Abraham Lincoln received vitriolic letters from General McClellan during the Civil War, publicly undermining him as incompetent, he drafted furious responses and then locked them in a desk drawer unsent. Contrast that with Steve Jobs' early career, where his legendary temper alienated colleagues until he learned to channel passion without venom. Both men felt anger. The divergence lay in their choice to metabolize it rather than hemorrhage it. Modern neuroscience explains why. Anger floods the body with cortisol and adrenaline, shrinking the prefrontal cortex's problem-solving capacity by up to 30%. In survival scenarios, this trades rational thought for reflexive action, useful when facing a lion, catastrophic when facing a boardroom disagreement. But here's where Seneca's metaphor cuts deepest. Anger's most insidious damage is invisible. A study from Harvard Medical School tracked executives over 20 years and found those with uncontrolled hostility had triple the risk of cardiovascular disease compared to calmer peers. Your boss's snide comment might sting for an hour, but the hours you spend ruminating, that's the acid etching scars into your arteries and neural pathways. UFC champion Georges St. Pierre weaponized this insight. He'd train his heart rate to stay below 120 beats per minute, even mid-fight, knowing adrenaline dumps lead to sloppy strikes. His opponent swung wildly in rage. He countered with ice-cold precision. Practical steps first, implement the Seneca pause. When provoked, physically step away, even if just to a bathroom stall, and breathe until you can whisper aloud, "What outcome do I actually want?" This disrupts the amygdala hijack. Next, adopt strategic venting. Journal every detail of your anger, then burn or shred the pages. The act of externalizing transfers the acid from your psyche onto disposable paper. Roman generals used this ritual before battles, scribbling insults about enemy leaders onto clay tablets and smashing them. The true test comes when anger masquerades as justice. Nelson Mandela spent 27 years in prison yet forbade ANC members from retaliating against white guards after his release. "Resentment is like drinking poison," he said, "and then hoping it will kill your enemies." The alpha mindset discerns between righteous action and self-sabotaging reaction. A CEO firing an unethical employee isn't anger, it's calibrated correction. But a manager screaming over a missed deadline, that's just weakness wearing rage as a mask. Mastery lies in reframing anger as intel, not fuel. Every flare-up reveals a value under threat, your competence questioned, fairness violated. The Stoic move: treat it like a check engine light. Instead of slamming the dashboard, pop the hood and diagnose. When SpaceX's early rockets exploded, Elon Musk didn't berate engineers, he demanded forensic data to isolate failure points. That's the difference between those who drown in acid and those who neutralize it into clean energy. Anger is a messenger, never let it become the mission. Breathing might seem too simple to be a weapon until you witness a Navy SEAL using it to stay lethally calm while bullets fly. Tactical breathing isn't just inhaling and exhaling, it's a physiological override switch for anger. Here's how it works. Inhale deeply through your nose for 4 seconds. Hold that breath for 4. Exhale slowly through pursed lips for 4. Then pause empty for 4 before repeating. This isn't meditation, it's biohacking. When your amygdala detects threat, it triggers a cascade of stress hormones. But controlled breathing sends a counter-signal through the vagus nerve, your internal chill pill, slashing cortisol levels by up to 20% in under a minute. Fighter pilots use this before dogfights. Hostage negotiators deploy it during standoffs. And you can weaponize it the next time a colleague takes credit for your work or traffic turns your commute into a nightmare. Cognitive reframing takes this further, transforming anger from a wildfire into a laser. Start by labeling the emotion precisely. Are you truly angry or actually feeling undervalued because your boss ignored your suggestion? Neuroscientists at UCLA found that naming emotions reduces their intensity by activating the prefrontal cortex, the brain's logical CEO. Next, conduct a reality test. Is this person's behavior about me or their own fears/insecurities? A rude client might be projecting stress from a failing marriage. A snippy barrister could be nursing a migraine. This isn't about excusing poor behavior. It's about depriving it of power over your nervous system. Consider how elite athletes handle referee bad calls. The untrained player rages, earning technical fouls. The pro, like LeBron James, he'll grimace, then channel that energy into a jaw-dropping three-pointer. Same stimulus, radically different response. The Stoics called this the discipline of assent, inserting a mental pause between trigger and reaction to choose your interpretation. Modern therapists teach it as cognitive distancing, imagining yourself observing the situation from a helicopter's perspective, that petty office argument. From 200 feet up, it's a meaningless blip in your decade-long career. Practical application: create an anger toolkit. Pre-load your phone with a photo that induces calm your dog, a mountain vista, and glance at it when tension spikes. Keep a rage log to identify recurring triggers, e.g., interruptions during deep work, and engineer solutions, noise-canceling headphones, do not disturb signs. For persistent resentment, try the empty chair technique. Voice your grievances aloud to an empty seat, then switch chairs and respond as the other person would. You'll often find their motives are less sinister than your anger imagined. The ultimate reframe: view anger as data. Every flare-up signals a boundary crossed or value violated. A teammate's laziness angers you because you prize excellence. A partner's broken promise stings because you value trust. Extract the lesson, then discard the emotional excess. Marcus Aurelius journaled about turning obstacles into fuel. The impediment to action advances action. Your anger isn't the enemy, it's the raw material for your next evolution. Master these techniques, and what once derailed you becomes the grit that sharpens your edge. Marcus Aurelius, the emperor who ruled Rome at its peak, cuts through the noise of performative virtue with a command sharper than any sword. Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one. At first glance, it seems obvious until you realize how much energy we burn debating ideals instead of embodying them. The alpha mindset doesn't posture about integrity. It lives it quietly, letting actions scream while the ego stays silent. Picture two leaders. One delivers fiery speeches about accountability but shifts blame behind closed doors. The other owns mistakes publicly, corrects them privately, and never mentions his honesty. Who commands real respect? This quote exposes the modern obsession with virtue, signaling the desperate need to appear good rather than do good. Social media transformed morality into a performance art. #activism, filtered charity events, empty corporate DI statements. The Stoics called this the disguise of goodness, like painting a rotten fruit gold. Contrast that with figures like Fred Rogers, the unassuming TV host who spent decades modeling kindness without ever announcing it. He didn't need viral clips to prove his character. His lifelong consistency spoke volumes. Neuroscience reveals why humility packs such power. Princeton researchers found that people who demonstrate competence without seeking recognition activate the brain's trust centers more intensely than those who boast. It's the quiet confidence effect. The less you need validation, the more you attract it. Think of Warren Buffett still living in his modest Omaha home despite billions, or Angela Merkel recycling her own grocery bags as Germany's chancellor. Their restraint wasn't weakness, it was an unspoken assertion that their worth needed no embellishment. But here's where most misinterpret Marcus' command. Humility isn't self-erasure. When Serena Williams dominates a tennis match, she doesn't downplay her skill, she lets her backhand do the talking. The alpha mindset distinguishes between false modesty, "Oh, this old championship ring," and authentic focus, pouring energy into growth rather than image management. Ancient Stoics like Cato the Younger would attend Senate meetings in simple tunics while out-debating senators draped in gold. His power came from preparation, not props. Practical application. Start with the action audit. For 1 week, tally how many minutes you spend discussing self-improvement versus practicing it. Podcasts about discipline. Replace 30 minutes with an actual workout. Debating productivity hacks. Use that time to tackle your inbox. Next, implement stealth virtue, doing good anonymously. Pay for a stranger's coffee without posting it. Send a mentorship email without CCing your boss. The goal isn't to hide your light, but to test whether it burns bright enough to be noticed without promotion. Consider how emergency responders operate. Paramedics don't stop mid-CPR to tweet #lifesaver. They fix the crisis, then fade into the background. That's the essence of Marcus' wisdom. True character isn't a costume you wear for applause, but skin you can't remove. The ultimate test. Imagine everything you've done today was broadcast without your name attached. Would your actions still clearly telegraph who you aspire to be? If not, you've found your starting line. 25 razor-sharp Stoic quotes, each a mental chisel reshaping how you face adversity, ambition, and everyday battles. Together, they form more than wisdom. They're an operating system for unshakable resilience. From Marcus Aurelius' command over your mind to Epictetus' alchemy of obstacles into fuel, these aren't just words to admire, they're tools to wield. Think of them as a psychological gym where every quote is a different exercise, strengthening your focus, discipline, and emotional mastery. The Roman emperors and philosophers who lived by these principles didn't just survive chaos, they thrived in it, turning wars, betrayals, and personal tragedies into stepping stones. That's the alpha mindset, not avoiding storms but learning to sail in them so skillfully that the winds work for you. This isn't about memorization, it's about embodiment. Knowledge untested by action is just decoration. Imagine a surgeon who's read every medical text but never picked up a scalpel, useless in the operating room. Your life is that operating room, and these quotes are your instruments. The real transformation begins when you move from understanding Stoicism to living it. When traffic jams become meditation sessions, when criticism becomes feedback, when failures become data, that's when you'll feel the shift. So here's your challenge: don't drown in all 25 at once. Start with one. Pick the quote that got you the most, the one that exposes a weakness you've been ignoring or a strength you've been neglecting. Maybe it's Seneca's warning about anger as acid, or Zeno's call to conquer yourself before the world. For the next 7 days, let that quote be your mantra. Write it on your mirror, set it as your phone wallpaper, whisper it before tough conversations. Then watch what happens. The comments are your arena. Share which quote you're taking into battle and how it's changing your game. Your story could be the spark someone else needs to start their own journey. Because the alpha mindset isn't a solo mission, it's a legacy. Every time you choose discipline over distraction, perspective over panic, you're not just upgrading your life, you're raising the bar for everyone around you. The Stoics didn't keep these secrets locked in scrolls, they passed them down through millennia. Now it's your turn. Pick up the torch. The world's waiting to see what you'll forge with it.